Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first Harvard Kennedy School Alumni Asian Seminar Series. I'm Dr. Minah Kang, the Kennedy School Alumni Board member and professor at Ewha Women's University in South Korea. Our session today is with Dr. Shaoshan Liu on dilemma of the AI regulatory landscape. The rise of ChatGPT has been attracting enormous attention around the world, and this breakthrough AI capability represented by ChatGPT signifies that AI may have reached a tipping point for large-scale commercialization and has opened the doors of many monetization opportunities. Well, we know that the advancement of AI can greatly benefit humanity. However, integrating AI into human society is also facing many challenges. In this talk today, Shaoshan will share his first-hand experiences dealing with AI compliance problems. Let me introduce our speaker today. Dr. Shaoshan Liu is a technology entrepreneur in the artificial intelligence industry who wants to improve humanity through technological advancement. His background is a unique combination of technology, entrepreneurship, and public policy. So I will give the floor to Dr. Shaoshan Liu. Will you start?
Thank you so much, Minah. Let me try to share my screen first. All right, can you guys see the screen? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Let's get started. So hi, everyone. Extremely honored to be here. My name is Shaoshan Liu. I'm an alumni of HKS MC 2020. Then before going to HKS for more than 1 decade, I have been a scientist and entrepreneur in the AI space and have firsthand witnessed the rapid evolution of AI technology in the past decade. So today's talk, the topic is dilemma of the AI regulatory landscape. That's from our firsthand experience as a startup dealing with different regulatory bodies around the world. I think this is an urgent problem that needs to be addressed and aligns with one of the missions of HKS to make our world a much better place. So let's get started. The talk today is divided into 3 parts. The first part is the rise of generative AI and its societal impact. We are using China as an example to understand how different societies can embrace AI technology. Then we'll talk about the infusion of AI into our society using healthcare as an example to demonstrate how AI can be really helpful in improving the healthcare conditions of the world. Then in the last part, I would like to raise a very important topic that we firsthand experience is the dilemma of the AI regulatory landscape, how we have encountered in the past few years a very wide spectrum of regulatory environment, so that it's not a very friendly environment for AI startups. Let's go ahead. So first, this talk, especially the societal impact part, it consists of a few articles that's been published on The Diplomat. It's my personal understanding of how the Chinese government is going to embrace AI into the Chinese society. So first, the key question we asked a few months back is, will China create a new state-owned enterprise to monopolize artificial intelligence? Because the key observation is that AI is becoming more and more powerful and more essential to national interest. And by tradition, China may not be willing to leave this development in the hands of private companies. And we have observed some recent trends to illustrate the potential creation of a state-owned enterprise to develop AI in China. So the background is that since AI has gradually evolved into a foundational part of societal infrastructure, very essential to gas, water supply, energy, and telecommunication, all these critical sectors are actually monopolized by Chinese state-owned enterprise. And traditionally, China's state-owned enterprise have controlled industries that are deemed essential to national interests and to China's economy. I think AI is no different. We are still at a stage that AI is rapidly evolving. But in the near future, my personal projection is it's very likely that China may create a new state-owned enterprise to develop core AI technologies. Because in the view of the Chinese national government, over-provisioning, which has happened in the intelligent electric vehicle industry, is not an efficient utilization of China's financial resources, and thus should not be encouraged. But at the same time, today we are seeing the trend very similar to electric vehicle industry, that a lot of companies are rushing in to create their own AI engine, so that we have entered a new era of AI gold rush. Instead, after a few years of rapid development, China may centralize financial and computing resource to one or a select few of institutions to develop AI foundational models. So that's a personal observation and projection. But before we delve into the topic of SOE and how state-owned enterprise will enter into the market of AI, what kind of societal change will AI bring to China? I mean, not just China, to the whole world. I think I work in technology, so my personal opinion is that whoever or whichever society that can best embrace AI will have an edge in technological and economical competition in the next era. But the dark side, if we look at generative AI today, the dark side of generative AI is that it's going to replace a lot of jobs. If we think industrial revolution 200 years back, it was going to replace a lot of industrial jobs, but this time it's the service sectors that will be hit the most. So how will China weather the disruption? We don't know yet. But what we know is education is in the core of East Asian society. Many Chinese parents have poured enormous amount of resources into their children's education in order to secure high-end white-collar jobs for their children in the service sectors. However, for this generation of anxious parents, when their children go through university education, these jobs may have already been taken by AI, as we see the capability of GPT, especially GPT-4. A lot of the service jobs will be gone. And then if we look back in history, Chinese history, there existed a clear social contract between the state and the people, where the state kept the people under control through land allocation, and in return, the people cultivated land and gave back a fraction of their production in the form of taxes to sustain the state's operation. And that's been a 1,000-year-old contract between the state and its people. But the new generation of Chinese people, instead of cultivate the land, they might cultivate the foundational AI model to create a new business model. And the foundational AI model is very likely to be provided by the state. And people who cultivate those models will pay taxes to the state in return. Because I think if in this era, energy is the most critical resource, next era, potentially AI will be, if not the most important production resource, will be one of the key production resource in Chinese society. But I think this applies to all societies, not just China. How to embrace AI into their societal fabric remains a challenge. So a lot of questions get asked, especially regarding China, is that China has a lot of technology company, for example, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. Why these companies did not generate an engine as strong as, say, ChatGPT or whatever OpenAI or Google release? I think the fundamental mindset till today of Chinese tech company is still driven by short-term profit. And they have always looked to the state to sponsor technological leapfrogs. So instead, but this time, instead of providing incentives or subsidies for AI companies, the state may have decided to develop their own AI technology through state-sponsored AI labs. And that's the recent trend we have seen in China. So instead of, if we go back one era, electric vehicle, also a big movement in China. Back then, Chinese government poured billions of dollars into incentivize and subsidize the production of electric vehicles. But this time it's a bit different. Instead of having having the government directly sponsoring directly subsidizing the development of AI. We are seeing the establishment of a lot of regional AI labs. And these AI labs are doing pure fundamental AI research sponsored by their local governments. For example, one of the leading labs, Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence, BAI. A competing lab would be Beijing Institute for General AI or Big AI lab. And then another municipal government, Shanghai, has launched its own Shanghai lab to develop AI. A new city in the south, up-and-coming city, Shenzhen, has their IDEA Lab, International Digital Economy Academy. So I think that strategy today, as we have observed it, is that instead of having a few national labs to develop AI for China, we are seeing a lot of regional labs booming to develop AI for the state. But in the near future, whether they will consolidate all these regional effort into the national effort, we are not sure yet. So for these few slides, I want to introduce the sort of the trend or national strategy in China to deal with AI or to embrace AI into its society. When we compare China to other countries, a lot of countries, when they claim that they have a AI strategy, but the funding support is missing or lagging behind compared to China. But China has a very clear AI development strategy through the municipal labs. For the private sector, they are both developing AI technology, but the municipal labs, they are doing more fundamental AI research, whereas the private sector labs are doing more application kind of AI. That's why we are seeing a lot of activity of AI in China, but at least that shows how Chinese government reacts to the revolution of AI technology. So that concludes part one, rise of generative AI and its societal impact. Using China as an example, we can reflect on other countries as well, how to embrace AI into their national strategy and what are the policy challenges and so on and so forth. So the next topic, we're going to try to talk about the infusion of AI into society and how the technology can be actually helpful instead of just generating profit. So let's review the United Nations SDG 3. So the story goes in September 2019, different heads of states endorsed a very ambitious mission at UN. It's a universal health care, universal health coverage. But the reality today is that at least half of the world's population lacks access to essential or basic health services, and up to 1/3 will remain underserved even by the year 2030. So the main challenge is how do you bring the technology to the underserved and hard to reach, especially with aging population and resource allocation or different kind of challenge. I do believe AI can help in this domain, and because as we have discussed before, generative AI will replace a lot, if not replace, but enhance a lot of service sector jobs, and medical services, healthcare services can be much improved through artificial intelligence technologies. So let's look at a figure here to illustrate the problem. The red line here are the life expectancy of LDC countries, whereas the blue dots here are the life expectancy of OECD countries. The key question remains, can we narrow this gap through health AI? Because a lot of the LDC countries, they have a fairly low life expectancy because they don't have access. They don't even have access to health care. Can we use AI to bring more equal healthcare access to people all around the world? So this is a project we have conducted along with the United Nations, published at the Bulletin of World Health Organization. The concept is called autonomous mobile clinics. Basically, these are vehicles that can go around different places, and the vehicle is equipped with medical equipment that can automatically, through AI, to detect or to perform a disease screening to detect whether a person is sick, and then if so, can connect through telemedicine to a remote doctor to provide treatment. So that's the overall vision that we have described in this article. It's called the autonomous mobile clinics. Basically, it has several components. It has to be autonomous so that it can navigate around in regions that are hard to reach. Then it's mobile clinics so that it's equipped with different kind of equipment within the car to provide basic healthcare screening, basic healthcare services. And then on top of that, if something is detected through telemedicine, we can connect a remote patient to a doctor to provide service. So that's the basic design. So that with this design, there are several steps to improve healthcare. Status quo today, as we have discussed, is healthcare is distributed, unbalanced, very hard to access. Step one, if we can have autonomous mobile clinics, we can have equal access for all, because that's a great way to reduce hospital inpatients, especially in LDC countries. Inpatient is a very big problem, especially for patients who lack mobility. It's very hard for them to visit a clinic or hospital. Then on top of that, if we within the vehicle, we can develop a AI doctor that can automatically screen diseases. We can through this we can minimize healthcare costs, because using AI doctor, each AI doctor can basically see unlimited amount of patients instead of a human counterpart. You can only see a few patients per day. Then once that's done, the third step is to develop an ecosystem. Each medical vertical could be a application on this platform. So that's been the roadmap for the autonomous mobile clinic project. So technology-wise, to develop such a prototype vehicle, we need to have autonomous driving capability to help navigate the vehicle around to provide service. We need to have unified electronic health record so that we can keep track of patients' health status. We have to have very good connectivity so that people can connect through telemedicine to their remote doctor. And at last, we have to integrate many different types of medical equipment on board of a vehicle. So these are the fundamental services that we have to, or infrastructure that we have to provide in a vehicle so that we can enable AI doctors in the car. One example would be if we look at how mature the technology is. If we look at the sensor available in cars today, we have millimeter wave radar that can detect heart rate, respiration rate. We have camera, different kind of camera, IR, RGB camera that can detect different kind of even emotion, heart rate, people's behavior. Then a lot of new sensors that have been integrated in the car can perform different kind of vital sign tracking. So if you just look at the sensor spectrum, in-car sensor spectrum, we already have the sensors ready to detect vital sign, to detect facial expression, and to provide infarction warning, and so on and so forth. So in-car technology is ready. It's about how we can integrate this technology through AI to provide better services so that all people can have equal access to AI or health AI. So we have done a prototype of this technology in a real car. So we have integrated different sensor data in a car environment. The car is equipped with 5G so they can connect to telemedicine if the driver or the rider is experiencing a medical condition. So again, this is more technology-oriented topic to demonstrate that the future of healthcare maybe combined with mobility can provide more remote access for patients. So on top of the autonomous mobile clinic project, as you saw, there's a long-term roadmap, step by step, we're going to achieve universal healthcare access. But immediate, we want to develop some technology that can be integrated into the autonomous mobile clinic or AMC project, but at the same time can be immediate help to patients in the least developed countries. So we have launched the AI clinics on mobile project, which is a sub-project of the AMC project. Basically what it means that the project is based on this inspiration. If we look at, again, the blue dots, it's a smartphone penetration rate in LDC. Surprisingly or not surprisingly, more than 80% of the population in LDC actually own a smartphone. But if you look at internet connectivity, less than 40%, even today, less than 40% of the people in LDC have internet connectivity. So they have a phone, but they may not have connectivity. So one way to provide them with basic diagnostic capability is to install an application on their phone that's able to perform disease screening using AI, and that's what we have been developing. We started the project. We target monkeypox because at the time monkeypox it's becoming a pandemic at the time. It's impacting a lot of different countries. So what we did is we developed a deep learning model to have people using their very low-end smartphone to take a picture of their skin, and then the model would be able to determine whether he or she has a very high probability of contracting monkeypox diseases, not just monkeypox, but different kind of skin-based diseases. And on top of that, the project has been open source so that doctors around the world can get access to the applications. They can download it. It's an Android app. They can download it to their phone and do disease screening. I need to acknowledge that the project, it's a team effort, but a lot of the participants are actually Harvard alumni. Dr. Anna, she's currently doing her PhD at School of Public Health. Ms. Kang, she's with UN. She's a sponsor of the project from United Nations. And myself and Dr. Kang also from HKS. So I think it's a great collaboration across different Harvard schools to make this project happen. So the conclusion for that second project, infusion of AI into a society, is AI can actually be very helpful, especially for people who lack access to high-end technology, high-end cell phones. We can actually make the AI technology available on very low-end embedded systems, phones that are less than $100. Then AI can be immediate help. And the screening accuracy has achieved state of the art. So we will continue to expand the AI clinic projects to cover many more diseases. Eventually, it may become a fundamental operating system with different kind of vertical applications to different diseases. And right now, what we are doing is that we are integrating ChatGPT-like capability into the application so that a patient over there can talk to the phone to describe their condition, so that the phone can make diagnostic decision or referrals for them to seek further treatment. So we have covered the macro trend of embracing AI into society. We have talked about the benefit of AI, or especially infusion of AI into our society. The third part, it's a difficult topic. It's a dilemma of AI regulatory landscape. So as mentioned at the beginning, I'm a technology entrepreneur in the artificial intelligence sector myself. And in the past decade, I'm very fortunate to have closely interacted with various technology regulatory bodies around the world, including United States, Europe, Japan, China, and Korea as well, I believe, many different regions. What we have observed is we have encountered many AI regulation problems, mainly due to the lack of understanding of AI technology from various regulatory bodies. And furthermore, the lack of standard method of AI regulation. So the end result is that compared to a software industry norm, which spends about 13% of their overall budget on compliances, using my company Perception as an example, AI startups spend up to 40 to 50% of their budget on compliances. Since this talk it's to the HKS community, I'm hoping that we can work together to promote standardization of AI regulation across the globe, so that different companies, when they develop a new technology that's beneficial to society, we can only have to deal with regulation probably once, then call it done. Instead of each region, we have to deal with compliances and regulation again and again, becomes a waste of very scarce R&D resources. So let's explain, let me try to explain our journey. So if we look at the different stages of regulation, there's a technical readiness stage, application for permit, there's a negotiation with national government stage, negotiation with local government stage, And then finally, we reach commercial deployment. So that's usually the key steps we have to take to reach commercial deployment. And then on the x-axis, you can see the number of months in each country we spent on each stage. For example, in Japan, if you handle the national government well, then local government would not be an issue. So we spend a lot of time dealing with the national government, gaining their approval. Then we have to move forward to the regional government, then commercial deployment. In the United States, it's the complete reverse. The national government doesn't care much. Usually we have to start with the local government, the city government first to gain their permit city by city, so that we can start a commercial operation. So each country or each region has their own regulatory problems towards AI. Some are more strict, some are less strict, but the process is very complicated. And that's the diagram I want to bring up to show how much time it takes from when we apply for a permit to actually launch the vehicle. On the right side, you see in China, we spent about 10 months from the time we apply till the time we can deploy it. In Japan, we spent 13 months to go through the process. So it's I conclude that because there's no standardized method of regulation, it is what it is. Each government has its own understanding of technology, so that we have to go through this very painful process. Budget. I always want to talk to budget reflects the financial health of a company. If you are a startup, you have a baseline revenue of $2 million. The gross margin, say 40%. A slight change in compliance costs would mean life or death for a startup company. If you're a startup company, the compliance cost is $300,000 in this simulation, then you are a profitable company. But if it jumps to $500,000, $600,000, or $700,000, then you start to enter into a mode that you may not survive the environment. But for tech giants, it doesn't matter. Even if they experience a 200% jump in their compliance costs, it would not hurt them much because they are financially very hopeful. But I want to remind everybody that most companies in the AI space are startups. But the continuation of this trend may phase out the majority of AI startups and lead to giant technology firms monopolize the AI technology, which we have seen the trend today. It's big firms monopolizing AI technology. But the startup ecosystem is actually what brings energy and innovation to the tech cycle. So we hope that we can promote for standardization of AI regulation to make sure that we can have more ideas, more startups to implement different kind of products to make sure that we can realize the benefit of AI instead of hurting these startups. So here we kind of summarize the problems we have encountered when dealing with different regulatory bodies and when we make our budget. The first problem is there's no standard way to budget. If you are an AI startup, I don't think compliance costs ever cross your mind when you make your annual budget. So even if you had the mindset to set a compliance budget for AI, most likely it would deviate from your budget. You most likely to be too optimistic. Then because you have to be dealing with many different regulatory bodies, there are a lot of indirect costs. For example, you have to spend engineering cycles to deal with regulatory questions. So we are seeing this chaotic environment when it comes to AI compliances. So our conclusion is that there's an urgent need for global standardization for AI regulation. This is a wild idea I tried to throw out. What about FDA? US FDA is pretty much a good gold standard for food and drug regulation. But if you look at FDA's history, it might provide some inspiration. So more than 100 years ago, the development of complex pharmaceutical drugs was regarded as both threatening and promising as AI is today. And it's a black box, whether it's drug development or AI. FDA, the way they handle the problem is that it's a consumer protection agency aiming to protect consumer benefits to make sure that the drugs are safe. Can we have in the United States a agency similar to the FDA to regulate AI, acting as a consumer protection agency to make sure that AI is developed for people's well-being by encouraging more responsible and ethical AI and discouraging dangerous and overwhelming AI behaviors. What makes a FDA successful today is that it consists of a nationwide network of laboratories to analyze different kind of drug products, so they can provide guidance for regulation, which is exactly what we are missing today for AI. We have no agency to provide guidance. Everybody is trying to draft their own guidance documents, but with no consensus. So from my perspective as a AI entrepreneur, we are hoping that whether we can work towards the goal of establishing a similar agency in the United States to make sure that it becomes a gold standard for global AI regulation. So that's the end of my talk today, which has been divided into 3 parts: the rise of generative AI and how different countries have policies to embrace it into their own society. Using China as an example, there's a few references I put out here. The infusion of AI into our society. I'm using a healthcare project that's co-developed by a few Harvard alumni, including myself, Dr. Kang from United Nations and Dr. Anna from Harvard School of Public Health. We have a few references here. And the last part is more a reflection from my personal experience of dealing with regulatory bodies. Since this is an AI talk, it's a talk to Harvard Kennedy School alumni, whether we can work together to develop or actually promote for a global standardization of AI regulation. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Shaoshan. I mean, behind this, your talk, there are so many details that we want to know more about. And I see quite many questions that are posted on the chat box. Shaoshan, can you see them?
Yes, I do see them.
Oh, okay. Would you like to answer to those questions?
Definitely. I wonder what kind of security feature of autonomous mobile clinic we need to protect them from those who will want to steal the supply. Well, I think that's a good question. We're not there yet, actually. We are laying out the roadmap. We have make a demonstration of the project, but security, we are not there yet. But one day we'll get there. When we first came up with the project idea of autonomous mobile clinic, people think we were crazy because a lot of countries don't even have basic access. Now we are talking about autonomous vehicle moving around to provide healthcare services. But I think technology is evolving very fast. If you look at cell phone penetration in the past 2 decades in LDCs, you couldn't imagine it. So autonomous driving has become a major topic in the United States and China and Europe. I do believe the penetration will hit the tipping point so that we will experience exponential growth. We will not be 2 decades away before people in LDC can get access to this kind of technology. So that makes it right now the perfect timing for drafting this kind of roadmap. So the second question is, how can regulation make AI safe and at the same time drive business value? Curious about your view as an entrepreneur. My view as an entrepreneur is that if you look at the history of technological development, all the great innovations were developed by startups. Back then, Google was a startup from a garage. Microsoft was a startup. Facebook was a startup. Now they are tech giants. So startup ecosystem is essential for innovation. But then what's different between Google back then and today, many AI startups, is that the regulatory environment is very toxic, such that from our own experience, we spend too much budget on dealing with regulation. So that gave me inspiration now as a HKS alumni to promote a global standardization for AI regulation that will make the ecosystem grow organically. So how do we incentivize entrepreneurs to provide AI healthcare to remote individuals? Is this totally government funded? Yes, I do believe at the beginning we need support from government funding. In this particular project, it's a volunteer project and it's sponsored by United Nations. We're grateful for that. But I do believe a lot of technology, healthcare technology, that can be developed, it's beneficial to humankind as a whole, instead of say we are targeting only LDC or we are targeting only advanced economy, because it's a common technology that can help many different kind of people. One way to develop a business model is that we have a basic version that can help that can be utilized for disease screening that's free. You can develop more advanced functions to provide diagnostic recommendation that can charge people money for that service. Surprisingly, not many startups are in the actual AI healthcare space, but I do see the potential and the huge need for health AI. But business model wise, yeah, we are still exploring. What kind of compliance requirements are already in place for AI startups? So privacy, for example, how do you make sure that you're not infringing people's privacy? Security for the second thing, how to make sure that everything's safe. It's very hard to prove that you're absolutely safe. Take autonomous driving, for example, how to prove that you will not hit an accident. I think Tesla has ran into a lot of accidents, but on the grand scale, if you compare Tesla's performance to human performance, I think Tesla still wins in terms of being a driver. When using generative AI, how do you ensure patients are not misdiagnosed and protected from potential harmful advice? Oh, it's still evolving. We are using benchmark today. So even generative AI, you can use benchmark to evaluate the performance of generative AI. It's a pure number, a percentage of accuracy that you get. And then you compare that accuracy to doctors' performance. Usually, I believe today, if using state-of-the-art generative AI, it can outcompete a lot of real doctors. I just read that GPT-4, if you put it through the bar exam, it scores the top 10%, 95 percentile, or something like that. So it outperformed most of the human counterparts today already. Can you give examples of what sort of compliance requirements being imposed on AI company? Oh, yeah, that's as I mentioned, different people have a very weird requirements from across government, privacy being the most important one, security, safety, and then to be more specific, they will say, how many miles have you tested your car, for example, for autonomous driving? But that itself, it's a misleading question. You can test the car in a racing track, which you probably never hit an accident, or you can place your car in Fifth Avenue in New York. Then how can you compare the mileage performance between the two? So we lack a lot of standards to impose for these regulatory requirements. Which international bodies do you think the most appropriate to enter AI regulation space? The first thing that popped into my mind is to have an international organization to provide guidance. For example, one organization, ITU, under United Nations, they've been dealing with telecommunication, but they provide a lot of guidance. They are not providing law or policy, they provide guidance. But I think the most successful one in terms of regulation, to me, it's FDA. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry, each country has their own version of FDA, but mostly they follow US FDA as a gold standard. I think the leading country in the field has to lead in regulation as well. So I'm hoping whether the United States can come up with an agency similar to the FDA to provide more policy and guidance on AI regulation. And then given that many big companies simply harvest content off the internet, what kinds of compliance are in place to protect IP? Not much today. Not much today. We are in a chaotic development mode of AI today. For one thing, a lot of people open source their projects, so it's easy to gain access to technology. For the second thing, it's data. You can get a lot of data from internet today. So if we examine the recent AI competition, it's more a competition on how much compute power or how much financial resources you have access to, instead of what can do. Minah, you're muted. I saw you spoke. You muted. Oh, okay. is targeting regional regulatory framework and mechanisms as easier first step, given the major digital divide still exists among many countries. By regional, do you mean a region within a country or a region in the world? What we have seen, when we talk about regional, it's a very interesting observation. When we went to Japan, we talked to a regional government, a city government. They say, oh, you have to gain national approval. Once you gain that national approval, we are no problem to you. That turned out to be the case. We talked to Japan's Ministry of Transportation. We gained approval, then everything became very smooth. In the United States, it's the complete opposite. There's no federal regulation because the road is owned by the city government. So you have to talk to region by region, city by city to go through the compliance or regulatory approval. So it really depends on the culture and the country that we're dealing with. So what's the role of media in shaping public perceptions of AI, and what responsibility do journalists and news organizations have when they report on this topic? Can you touch upon moral and ethical considerations? Will AI cause an even bigger digital divide? I think AI is already causing a bigger digital divide today. I'm not sure what role the media play. I think media create a lot of anxiety when it comes to AI, because the first report we see when ChatGPT comes out is that, oh, you guys are going to lose all your jobs. Instead of encouraging people how to adapt to AI or how to embrace AI into the society, most media report that we have seen is to create anxiety. But digital divide is a big problem. Because it used to be that a few guys from a garage, because they have idea, they launch a technology and then they spread technology to the world. And that's been the model of technology development. That's been the model of Silicon Valley. What we've seen with AI is that now it becomes a competition of how much compute resource or financial resource you have. The training of one, say, ChatGPT-like AI model would cost, each time you train the model would cost tens of millions of US dollars. There's no way for small startups to compete in this space anymore. You cannot win with an idea anymore. It basically comes down to how much compute resource you have. So I think the digital divide will be ever widening, because if you look at Microsoft, they have all the money. If you look at Google, they have all the money. That's why I think Chinese government say, hey, forget about private sector. We're going to step in. We're going to do it ourselves. We can pour in the resources to make sure that we can compete. But if you are startup in this space, it's very hard. It's very hard. Healthcare by nature requires intense regulatory attention. How about AI application in other industries? Yep. So I think that's a good question. When we talk about AI regulatory problem, we are not talking about healthcare. We're talking about general AI, whether it's a camera or an autonomous vehicle. That's a general problem. I understand that healthcare is a highly regulated industry. I think that should be as well, because that deals with your health. But then it's in general, AI, it's heavily regulated today for the reason that governments or government officials today, they do not understand AI. So they have to put out the most strict requirements to make sure that they don't bear the responsibility when something goes wrong. That's why I think we need a standardization of global AI regulation. So next question, if generative AI is the cornerstone of national competitiveness and productivity, it will likely become a battlefield for the US and China rivalry. While global standardization is welcome, which countries would be given the power to make the rules? Will there likely be convergence? I think there will be convergence because if we forget about geopolitical issues, the technology development, it's very similar. Whether it's China, whether it's Japan, Korea, or whether it's the United States or Europe, we are dealing with the same generative AI. I think the competition is not at a national level. If you look at the United States, how much resource has the US federal government poured into AI development? It's really not much compared to Google, Facebook, these big giants. So I think one of the problems I have observed in the United States today is that when we talk about an industry in the United States, you are left with pretty much two things: finance, big tech. The big tech are gaining a lot of power, and that goes back to the digital divide problem. as these big tech gain more power, they become more powerful. They monopolize on a lot of industry. They already did, right? Monopolize on all the internet-based technology industries. But with AI capability, they can revolutionize, for example, legal, accounting. More and more industry will be taken over. So under the US model, I think the digital divide is ever widening. And that's why in the Chinese model, the government tends to step in when they see a technology that powerful. So that's my personal projection that the Chinese government will create a SOE to regulate AI. How will the upcoming EU AI Act contribute to the acceleration of these types of health AI innovation? Will the EU lead in shaping regulatory framework in Asia? Could be. I think European countries are very good at drafting policy documents, and they are very active in this field. And when they draft something, they tend to react quite quickly. The problem is that it's a personal view that they put out a lot of regulatory documents, but those documents or policies tend to be overly strict. And that's why we don't see too many tech companies, global tech companies from Europe today after the internet era, because that involves a lot of regulation across Europe. United States, as opposed to that, it's more, it's less strict compared to European regulations. And I think a side effect of that, it's we see a booming development of US tech sector. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Is the lack of diversity and representation in the AI industry and among policymakers a concern? I think so. I think so. It's a huge concern. If you talk to policymakers, it's very rare that they have a good understanding of AI and AI's boundary and capability. This can result in biased AI algorithm and algorithm of oppression that may perpetrate discrimination and inequality. Yes, I think so. I think so. We don't know how to address that yet because we don't even have a consensus on AI regulation. And if we ever reach a consensus of AI regulation, then we can do a deep dive on these various topics of AI problems. A global regulator of AI may be too tedious to achieve, but one that starts with ruling government. I agree. That's why I propose if the US can lead say a FDA-like agency, when they publish very good guidance, the world tends to follow the leader. I don't think it falls on the shoulder of an international organization because it's not their responsibility to draft documents. They are doing coordination between countries. So I think whether it's a Chinese regulatory body or US regulatory body or EU regulatory body, we'll see. I think these three places three regions are the leading regions in AI development today. Will you be able to share slides? Yes, I will share the slides to the organizer, so you guys can access afterward. How ready are governments? And essentially, how ready is the world to deal with issues of rapid displacement? Well, if we go back to Industrial Revolution, I think we have seen it before. If you are a worker before Industrial Revolution in the textile workshop, then your job will be replaced for sure. But how quickly you can pick up the new skills determines how quickly you can land a new job in the new market. I think this is the pain we have to go through. In the long term, I think AI will be highly beneficial to mankind. But in the short term, we bring a lot of pain by replacing a lot of jobs. I think there are a lot of high-paying jobs are already in danger. For example, accounting used to be a very high-end job, very respected job, but I think accounting can be easily done by AI today, especially with generative AI. Why is it? Oh, so where are we? I kind of. Why is it there little interest in protecting IP among regulatory bodies? Wouldn't that have an impact on industry based on creativity? I don't get the impression that there's little interest in protecting IP among regulatory bodies. I think they are putting roadblocks to block the deployment or commercial deployment or commercialization of technology. But personally, I did not experience lack of IP protection in this field. So I don't know how to comment on this question. The last question, I've seen a lot of generative AI companies blissfully and obviously ignore the whole training AI models on copyright data. Oh, that's what you meant. Yep, copyrighted data. Well, they tend to just search the internet and crawl any content they could, and then to generate a model from that. And sometimes they don't even know how to decide whether something is copyrighted or not. I think the internet infrastructure today is not ready to make sure that maybe with blockchain we can achieve that. But today I think they don't know. Sometimes the technology itself, they cannot tell whether something is copyrighted. And I think I want to end this with an incident that took place, I think, last month. I think Samsung, as a company, started to using ChatGPT. They bought the license to use ChatGPT. It's from a chip design, which is a processor design, a core group within Samsung. What happens is that because as Samsung engineers were using ChatGPT were also learning from the user. So their core, the most confidential chip design data got leaked. So that some other company can search for their data. So I think that's the danger of AI. We couldn't predict until it happened. Just like these copyright issues, sometimes when the technology goes through data, right now it has no way to tell whether data it's copyrighted or it's confidential. There's no blockchain to say that, oh, this piece of data you cannot share with someone else. I think AI today is one step ahead of privacy or copyright protection. So technology on those verticals need to be developed to match the capability of AI. So thank you so much. I think that's the end of all questions.
Well, thank you so much for great questions. And thank you, Shaoshan, for such detailed answers to each question. Well, we all saw how much we are interested as well as worried and concerned at the same time with this new technology development. Well, thank you so much for everyone for attending this great forum. Thank you for support from the Kennedy School Alumni Office. And we hope to see you all in our next Asian seminar series organized by Harvard Kennedy School Alumni Board. Well, thank you.